20. Telephony, the Anywhere Technology, a presentation by Jordan Bagley and Jordan Gale. Why study telephony? Well, the emergence of mobile phones in the past couple of decades has ushered in a massive shift in telecom technology and has redefined social interaction. The scope and penetration of mobile phones and smartphones has a serious economic impact and in fact has become one of the most burgeoning markets of the current age. The rapid expansion of mobile telephony and the accompanying demand for faster speeds for data, voice, and text has serious implications on the available wireless spectrum, and it threatens other technologies such as radio and even wireless internet. The telephone was invented in 1876 by Alexander Graham Bell. Originally, it was more of a novelty, and it took a lot of marketing and advertising efforts to get it off the ground. Bell and a few others founded the Bell Telephone Incorporated in 1877. In 1885, AT&T was founded by a lot of these original members and created the first transcontinental phone line in 1915, thereby making it a protected monopoly. The Federal Communications Commission was then founded in 1934 in order to regulate this new and rapidly growing industry. Telephone originally relied on vast networks of hard lines on poles as well as under the earth in order to send information from one place to the other. These will all be hooked to a central hub where everything was switched and routed to the respective location where it needed to go. This was referred to as the Public Switch Telephone Network. The FCC noted in 2011 that the transition from this network has been underway for quite some time. With the digital evolution and the onset of computers, digital processing of phone has made innovations like voicemail, caller identification, and voice over internet protocol possible. In addition to that, fiber optic line has started to replace copper line, as modems are now able to translate voice into binary code for these digital systems. Switching has allowed for simultaneous sharing of voice, video, and text. Voice over Internet Protocol, or VoIP, is a technology that allows telephony to take place over the internet and bypass switch networks altogether. It was originally invented by Alan Cohen and Leo Haramati. It eliminates the costs of the publicly telephone switch network and utilizes computers and phones. Examples of this are companies such as Skype or Fring. Early mobile phone communication was pioneered and made possible through use of frequency hopping spread spectrum. What this means is a cell phone's channel was kept in sync while the phone moved to different locations across cells. It was actually a patent registered in World War II by Hedy Lamarr, a famous film actress of the 40s, and her husband, George Anthiel. This was initially a system designed to control torpedoes over radio and to synchronize frequency shifts in the U.S. Navy's radio control over their torpedo fleet. Originally designed and developed by Martin Cooper, who is an electrical engineer working for Motorola on their car phone systems in their research and development lab. Inspired by the communicators from the TV show Star Trek, he opted to design a device that was independent of a hard phone line. In 1973, he succeeded and made the very first phone call. Incidentally, this phone call was made to Joel Engel, who happened to be the head of research over at Bell Labs, which was Motorola's chief competitor at the time. Now, while he had succeeded in creating the first mobile phone device, common use of these devices was a long way coming. In fact, this first phone was dubbed the Brick because it weighed in at almost 2 pounds, which is over 5 times the weight of one of today's mobile phones. The original obstacle really hindering the development of mobile phones was the lack of transmission lines and centers for which the phones to use while they travel. AT&T was very hesitant at first to allow entrepreneurs to experiment with their equipment to create these kinds of things, but over time Bell Labs worked on the solution and eventually developed cellular maps and locations for which these phones could hop to as they traveled around. The second generation, or 2G, of wireless communication arrived in 1991 with the GSM standard. This stimulated wide interest worldwide, especially in Europe. Now, the US market went a different approach and allowed different people and companies to develop and experiment with what they thought was best, which gave way to the CDMA standard, which is Code Division Multiple Access. The main difference between the two, and the reason why you can't take a Sprint phone over to T-Mobile or AT&T, is because GSM phones use SIM cards, whereas a CDMA phone is activated on the system by its serial number. The fact that mobile phones in general were still evolving at this time, the transition towards the smartphone actually began in 1993 with the IBM Simon. It was capable of doing email, calendar, contacts, as well as phone calls. In 1996, Nokia unveiled the 9000 model, which was actually a combination of a mobile phone and a Hewlett-Packard PDA, or Personal Digital Assistant Device, which was essentially the grandfather of today's tablets. In 2003, Motorola and Microsoft teamed up to release the MPX 200. It actually had its own operating system, email, instant messaging, and it even had basic apps. The BlackBerry took the market by storm when released in 2002, especially due to the fact that it had a hard, QWERTY keyboard which allowed for texting, or thumbing as it was called. In 2007, Apple really revolutionized the phone market by releasing the very first iPhone. At the time, it cost $499, which was almost unheard of. However, once people realized the potential of such a device, it quickly caught on. Apple again revolutionized the market in 2011 by introducing the Siri artificial intelligence assistant in their phones, which allows for a lot more intricate and intelligent voice commands. Right after the release of the iPhone, Google went to work developing their own operating system through 2007-2008, dubbed Android. Android is based off of Linux and is open source and usable across a vast amount of manufacturers and devices to ensure that the phone market can stay competitive. In more recent years, it has been noted that the smartphone market continues to grow rapidly with no signs of slowing down. In 2011, 472 million smartphones sold worldwide, representing 31% of all mobile sales. And as of 2012, survey results indicate that 42% of mobile users were using smartphones. A fun fact to note is that Steve Jobs, the deceased CEO of Apple, believed and claimed to his autobiographer that the source code for Android was originally stolen from Apple. In 2012, Nokia partnered with Microsoft to release the Lumia phones. Now, while these phones have been lauded for their technological specifications as well as their smooth operating system, they are very limited by the amount of adoption. In fact, it must be noted that even though Android has seen a large surge of the market share, their app store still pales in comparison to iPhones, simply based upon the fact that iPhone's market came out first and had more time to get off the ground. According to the diffusion of innovation theory mentioned in our text, the final adoption phase of mobile phones should be nearing. There were 6 billion worldwide subscriptions to mobile phones and mobile phone services in 2011. At the same time, landline usage has been experiencing a slow fall as well. In 2010, there was a survey that reported that 1 in 4 homes are actually operating without a landline, and this number is only expected to increase over time. Smartphones have an increasingly large share of the market, and as of 2011, 35% of all American adults were using a smartphone. 66% of adults between the ages of 25 and 34. The current standard of communication is 4G LTE, which stands for Long-Term Evolution. It was instituted in 2009. In order to claim that a device meets 4G LTE standards, it must be able to transmit 100 megabits per second while being moved around, and 1 gigabit per second to a stationary user.
Current status of cell phone subscriptions. The global number of cell phone subscriptions is roughly equivalent to 87% of the world's population. Mobile subscriptions in 2009 were 4.7 billion worldwide. In 2010, the number jumped to 5.4 billion, and then again in 2011, mobile subscriptions reached 6 billion. Current status of manufacturing brands. Contrary to the popular belief, Nokia is leading the world in phone sales, followed by Samsung. 2/3 of the global market purchases are not smartphones. It's funny, here in America, we like to believe that Apple is the leading seller, but in the world, that's not the case. In 2011, Nokia had shipped a total of 417.1 million mobile phones, crushing Apple, who sold a measly 93.2 million. Current status of landline use. Landline use is dropping dramatically, and more households are moving towards cellular phone service only. In 2005, landline only homes accounted for 1/3 of the population. In 2010, that number dropped to 13%. Current status of smartphones. American smartphone users are often using Androids or iPhones. BlackBerry and Windows phones, as well as Palm, have fallen noticeably behind. In 2014, the iPhone overtook Android in the US sales for the first time in 3 years. As of AT&T, well, in 2012, AT&T proposed a merger with T-Mobile, announcing plans to combine both services that would improve wireless connection. Sprint, one of the little guys, opposed the merger and filed a lawsuit. AT&T failed to persuade the US Justice Department and called off the merger. Factors to watch. Bandwidth. In 2010, the White House announced plans to secure at least 500 megahertz of additional spectrum. Their plans are to identify and classify inefficient broadcasters and coax them to give up their bandwidth channel in exchange for a lump sum of money. Why is this important? Bandwidth allows cell phone users to send and receive messages, share photos, connect to the internet, check social media, etc. Factors to watch. Cramming. The FCC estimates that 15 to 20 million American households receive mystery fees on monthly phone bills, also known as cramming. Only 5% of consumers are aware of the unauthorized charges. As we move to a more developed smartphone type world, there will be lots of charges for data, text messages, calls, so on. And I think you'll be seeing more and more cramming and additional tax on your bills that you normally wouldn't. Another factor to watch. Driving. Distracted driving is one of the leading causes of death in the United States, which attributes directly to nearly 3,000 deaths a year. As of mid-2012, 10 states prohibit all drivers from using handheld mobile phones, including talking on the phone while driving, with a hands-free device. 37 states also ban text messaging for all drivers. Utah is one of them. Another factor to watch is security. Security is becoming a major concern for mobile phone users because of viruses, worms, and malware. An estimated 277 million mobile devices will adopt some sort of protection software to protect business data and other sensitive content. Do you guys remember earlier this year when iCloud was hacked and a lot of celebrity nude photos were released? This is the type of problem I'm talking about. So be on the lookout for a new security software that will revolutionize the security of our devices. And finally, quiz questions. Number 1. The 2 leading brands of smartphones in the world are blank and blank. Number 2. Who was the first mobile phone call made to? Time's up. Quiz answers. The 2 leading brands of smartphones in the world are Android and Apple. Then, for number 2, Joel S. Engel, head of research at Bell Labs, was the receiver of the first cell phone call. Thanks for watching.